All right, let's bring back national college football reporter Matt Zenitz. Matt, good to see you again. And let's pick up where we left off. Arch Manning, the #1 quarterback in 2023, he's got his first start this week against Texas San Antonio. You're hearing some chatter from opposing coaches about Arch Manning before he gets his first start. Fill us in.
The big thing that they would say with Arch is that during the course of the last couple of weeks, including based on what he did last week against UTSA, we're starting to see that for as hyped of a prospect as he was, that it was justifiable and had a lot more to do with just his last name. And for me, even going back to Texas's game against Colorado State, where Quinn played most of that game. Arch got in, saw him just in relief duty. Had a conversation with somebody on the defensive staff at Colorado State coming out of that matchup. And one of the interesting things that they brought up was that through a combination of what they saw during pregame warmups and then when Arch got in during the course of that game, that it actually reminded them of a game that they had against a high-profile opponent 2 years before that, when they faced 2022 Michigan, a team that advanced to the college football playoff semifinals. And the thing that he threw out comparing those two teams is that this Texas quarterback room, to a certain extent, reminded him of that 2022 Michigan quarterback room that, if you remember, started the year with Cade McNamara at quarterback before eventually shifting to J.J. McCarthy. And the thing that defensive staffer at Colorado State said is that in both of these games felt like the better quarterback was actually the one on the bench.
It's a pretty bold statement, especially with the way that Quinn Ewers is playing. Matt, let's stick in the SEC. We got a big matchup on Saturday night between Oklahoma and Tennessee in Norman. Nick Anderson, the star receiver for the Sooners, he hadn't played all year. He shows up on the injury list. You got the #1 center in the country via the transfer portal, Branson Hickman, Lance Hurd, the starting left tackle for Tennessee. All guys that we're going to wait and see whether or not they're going to suit up on Saturday night. What can you tell us the latest on the injury front?
Biggest part of this is the Oklahoma receiver situation. So Oklahoma's had some issues through the first few weeks in terms of passing game, have a very talented young quarterback in Jackson Arnold, who has had some struggles through these first 3 weeks. I don't think he's eclipsed 175 yards in any of these first 3 individual games as of yet, with the injury situation at receiver factoring into that. So this is a big deal for Oklahoma that they're now in position to get 2 of their key guys back within that room. First of all, Nick Anderson, who had 10 touchdown catches last year and has not played through the early part of the season. He's in line to make his season debut. And then Andrel Anthony, a transfer from Michigan, who was emerging as a playmaker for Oklahoma last season before suffering a season-ending injury. He's now set to be back also after missing last week. And then obviously you brought up Lance Hurd on the Tennessee side, a former 5-star recruit who's Tennessee's starting left tackle. He missed last week due to an ankle injury. His status is a little bit more up in the air right now compared to those 2 Oklahoma receivers. And the latest with him is listed as questionable going into the game.
Matt, some tough news on the injury front for East Carolina. Shavon Revel, a guy that has really kind of been tabbed as a potential first-round draft pick in the NFL draft. He tears his ACL this week in practice. What can you tell us about how that might potentially impact his NFL draft stock?
Yeah, just an unfortunate development. I've heard not only great things about Shavon as a player, and I think people were becoming more and more familiar with just the caliber of talent that he is, but I've also heard tremendous things from the ECU staff about just the person that he is to go along with that. And this is a kid who, as I'm sure you can imagine, when you have first-round talent at the G5 level, there were a number of high-profile Power 4 teams that were very interested in him entering the portal and potentially being able to add him to their roster. And he was a kid who was loyal to ECU, stayed put despite having a chance to make a lot more money elsewhere. And even being at ECU and not being at a Power 4 place, had flashed enough during the course of the last couple of years and what he did last season that had a legitimate chance to be one of the top defensive backs selected in next year's draft. In the first 3 games, already had a couple picks, including a pick 6, I believe, last week, and just a really unfortunate deal to now suffer this injury in practice during the course of the week, and to now be set to obviously miss the rest of the season.